Gook.
You know, Chauncey, there's something about you. You don't play games with words to protect yourself.
Had no brains at all. The stuff with rice pudding between the ears.
He's very, very sexy. But I think he's brilliant.
I raised that boy.
It's always somewhat surprising to find men like yourself working so intimately with the president and yet somehow managing to remain relatively unknown. Yes, it is surprising.
And look at him now.
I can't write.
Well, I heard you speak 8 languages.
I can't read. I like to watch TV. I understand.
How much steel are you using these days, Todd?
Yes, had to show you that little vignette again. I'm quite proud of it. The show is not about Mark Carney today. It's about the future of the Conservative Party. But when we come back, I'll explain what I'm talking about. A sneak preview of what's going to happen Friday in Ottawa at the Canada First rally. Exciting stuff. We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station now. Give us a thumbs up. Help us break that YouTube algorithm that is constantly wearing us down. But, you know, I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing in the way that I do it and not be distracted by YouTube and not be distracted by my competitors to keep giving you the news you need to hear. I think we'll start off before we get into the guts of this. Justin Trudeau just keeps making himself popular. This was video from Chris Dacey, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago. And I love these guys who are out there following Justin Trudeau wherever he is. This is really quite funny.
Justin, nobody likes you, Justin. Hi, Justin. It's time to resign, Justin. Justin, nobody likes you anymore, Justin. Justin, you destroyed the country. The highest tax levels in the G7, Justin. You destroyed the country so much that our greatest ally wants to take us over, Justin. Justin, do a Trump dance for me. Come on, do a Trump dance. You trumpet. You dance for Taylor Swift. Give me a little Trump dance, Justin. A little Trump dance. Justin, what does it feel like to be the worst prime minister ever? Highest debt. We're the most taxed nation on earth. How does it feel, Justin? You destroyed our military, Justin. You destroyed our military. Justin, how many scandals, Justin? How many scandals? How much theft? The Green Slush Fund? How much, Justin? How much theft? Billions of dollars missing, Justin. Justin, do you think they ever listen to you in there? All your bullshit, Justin.
Please,
they just came for the lunch.
Be the last time we have to see you.
Yes, this might be the last time, Justin.
Go and don't come back.
This must be the last time for you and me, Justin. I'll still be here, and you'll be gone. The worst prime minister in history. There he goes. Bankrupt the nation. Destroyed our military. Way to go, Justin. Way to go.
Keep going. Don't come back.
Don't come back. That's from Derek Noonan. Have a look at his X site. In fact, I'll put the address in the description. It's well worth looking at some of the stuff. And for that matter, I was going to say, who else was on? Lynn Brooks, yes. She has some marvelous stuff on here as well. And so I got a note yesterday from Lynn saying she's so excited about what's happening on February 15th here in Ottawa. This is the Canada First rally. And it's interesting. It's occurring a day after Valentine's Day. This is a day after the 3rd anniversary of the Emergencies Act being invoked by Justin Trudeau. And it's also potentially the day the Supreme Court of Canada says that it was unconstitutional, illegal, inappropriate, improper, however they want to describe it, to prorogue Parliament because Justin Trudeau just wanted to keep the House of Commons silent. And Justin Trudeau wanted to escape a non-confidence vote. Justin Trudeau wanted to have his little liberal leadership race. And that's what it was about, politics. There was no good reason to prorogue Parliament, to dismiss Parliament. So that was challenged. The Supreme Court will be responding to that this week. This could be a heck of an exciting week. And I'll have experts on if the Supreme Court sides with that challenge. I think there's a good possibility they will, because the precedent is there in the UK Parliament when Boris Johnson shut down Parliament for no good reason except for politics. Justin Trudeau shut down the House of Commons for no good reason except for politics. This is a narcissistic individual, and Mark Carney is going to be just as narcissistic if he becomes the next Liberal leader and immediately becomes the next Prime Minister. So, this is the event I'm talking about. This is the Canada First rally on February 15th here in Ottawa. Now, it's being touted as a major rebranding, according to the inside sources. Now, I've got my feelers out to Conservative Party communications, and yes, I do have some contacts there. As you know, I worked on the Hill for many years for Conservative Reform, Canadian Alliance, and Conservative Party MPs. I worked with the Conservative Party Communications Department, the OLO, as it was called, the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. And so I know these people. And I know we're not going to have a sea change in rebranding this Friday. There's not going to be a complete departure from the message. But if you want to know what the message is, and I should say I'm trying to get an interview with Pierre Poilievre on Friday, at least at the event. Because I know, Conservative Party, unfortunately, doesn't like to talk to people who are small c conservative sometimes. They're very wary of that, but I think we can alleviate their concerns. But this is going to happen on Friday. I will be at the event, you bet you. I'll be reporting. I'll be covering it, parts of it live. There'll be a major report afterwards. I'm doing something for the Post-Millennial. I will be at this event. Now, what do you think this major rebranding is going to be? Because obviously, we looked at some of this polling that's coming out of Nanos, and suddenly Mark Carney seems so much more qualified. From what, 40% of Canadians? There's something suspicious about that poll. And we looked at this yesterday. I find this really ridiculous. 40% of Canadians think Mark Carney is better positioned, more qualified, the better person, whatever, however you want to put it, to negotiate with Donald Trump. Why? Donald Trump doesn't even know Mark Carney exists. So that's all nonsense. Let's have a look at this latest poll, too. Now, this is a couple of days out of date, but this is a CBC tracker poll. So I tend to think it's on the low side, but look at these numbers. Conservatives precisely 20 points ahead of the Liberals, 43.4% to 23.4%. New Democrats are starting to go into the basement. Recent poll has the New Democrats as low as 12% and Jagmeet Singh in third place in his own riding. Meaning he can't even win his own riding. He won't even be close. So yeah, it's over for Jagmeet Singh. It might be over for the New Democratic Party because they just sat far too long as the de facto coalition partner of Justin Trudeau in the Liberal Party. They had their chance to move against Justin Trudeau. Jagmeet Singh sat there and did nothing. And on Monday, he told you he had ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. On Tuesday, he told you he could not support Pierre Poilievre's non-confidence motion. On Wednesday, he said he was going to bring down the Trudeau government. On Thursday, he said he just couldn't do it now. So Jagmeet Singh is reaping the rewards of indecision and, frankly, lying to you constantly about his real desires and what he is going to do about bringing down the Liberal government. He never intended to bring down the Liberal government until he got his pension. Now it looks like it's getting a little late for poor Jagmeet. And I don't think he's going to have an opportunity even to come back in the House of Commons. To get back to this rally, though, on Friday, I encourage you to be there if you have an opportunity. What's going to happen? What is it all about? What do you think Pierre Poilievre is going to be talking about? Well, I stumbled across this tape from an appearance in, I think it's just it's a Vancouver synagogue, and Pierre Poilievre. And I was reluctant to watch it because I thought it was going to be the usual stuff about the Middle East, but it's interesting if you watch this because Pierre Poilievre essentially lays out what he's going to be talking about on Friday. This is a sneak preview of his plans. Now, because Mark Carney's lying about not wanting a consumer carbon tax, he will have a consumer carbon tax. He's calling it something else. And we have discussed that. It's not going to be the carbon tax like right now, but it's going to be like a tariff. It's going to be a carbon tax tariff, which they have tried in Europe, and it's just as devastating to the economy. This is where Mark Carney's going with the carbon tax. It's going to be as bad, if not worse, than the current carbon tax. This is what Mark Carney is up to. But Pierre Poilievre can't just go up there and axe the tax, because so many Canadians really believe that Mark Carney just doesn't want the carbon tax, or Chrystia Freeland. That the Liberals now have seen the light about how bad the carbon tax is. No, it doesn't really benefit 80% of the population. 8 out of 10 Canadians aren't getting more money back in their pockets. They've admitted that now. It's all been a horrible joke, a terrible misunderstanding. The Liberals just really believed it was good for you. But they've seen the light, and well, Pierre Poilievre might have been pushing the envelope a little hard, but basically he had it right. Then consumers just don't want that carbon tax. Canadians don't like the carbon tax, and it's time to move on to something else. We'll just punish those so-called polluters, the businesses and corporations that produce carbon, and they'll love it. And they'll say, yes, of course we'll pay for your carbon tax. No, we won't pass on the expense to consumers. We'll absorb the expense ourselves happily because we just love doing this for Mark Carney. We love doing this because we really believe this is an existential do something. And this is our way of giving back. This is all, of course, balderdash, nonsense, rubbish, BS. And Mark Carney expects you to believe it. And a lot of Canadians are buying into this right now. That Mark Carney, really, he's a common sense guy. But like that little vignette I showed you at the beginning, he doesn't make any sense. He doesn't have an economic plan. And what he talks about is absolutely stupid. We don't need steel anymore. Big companies are going to pay for the carbon tax. They won't leave the country. They won't take their business out of Canada. They won't go to the US where there's no carbon tax at all. There's no carbon tax tariff. There's no punitive measures to pay for carbon. They'll just keep doing their business in Canada. So Pierre Poilievre had to change the message because too many Canadians watch the CBC and read the newspapers that expound this nonsense. So he had to come up with something a little different. Well, here's what he said at the synagogue. This is what Pierre Poilievre will be talking about on Friday. It's not just the carbon tax. It's the fact that Canada is the most overtaxed country in the world, the most overregulated country in the world. We have a new tax every 3 months from this government. Just when you think you've been taxed enough, they come back and they bite you in the ass again. Excuse my language, but that's exactly how it feels. They come and get you again.
The answer is in our hands. Why don't we have homes in this country? Why is it that Vancouver is now the third most expensive housing market in the world? The most expensive anywhere in North America. Worse than New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Housing costs in Vancouver are 50% higher than they are in Seattle, even though Seattle workers earn about 30% more than Vancouverites. Same is true when you make the comparison between Toronto and Chicago or other major metropolises across this country. We have the worst housing costs anywhere in the G7. How is that possible? Let's think about this for a second. Housing should be dirt cheap in Canada because we have the most dirt to build on. By far, we have over 10 times more land per person than the second closest G7 country. And yet we have the fewest homes per capita. They have more homes per capita in Japan than we do here in Canada.
Now, have you ever thought about that? They have more homes per capita in Japan, a little country like that. Canada, what's the second largest, or is it the largest now? Because it keeps changing as the shape and constitution of Russia changes. But a country this size, less per capita than Japan. That's astounding.
Why? We have the land. We spend twice as much as a share of GDP on home building. We have the most mortgage debt, so we're borrowing more to build homes. So where are the homes? What's stopping them? The answer is government. In Vancouver today, 60% of the cost of every newly built home is government. It is government taxes, fees, charges, delays, land set-asides, and more. More money from a newly built home in Vancouver goes to bureaucrats than goes to the carpenters, electricians, and plumbers who actually build the homes. This is
Can you imagine that statistic? 60%, over half of the cost goes to bureaucrats, not to the people who build the home. That's unsustainable. They love to talk about how fossil fuels are unsustainable. That is unsustainable. You cannot expect people to work for nothing while the government sucks up all of the revenue produced by actual work.
Insane. Social justice, the single biggest driver of the gap between the rich and the poor is real estate. Very simple. When housing costs are unaffordable, the poor can never afford a home, and the very wealthy get much wealthier because their housing values go up. That's the biggest driver of poverty and despair. It's why we have such an increase in mental health problems, because our youth believe they will never be able to start a family or have kids. There's nowhere to put the kids. So what's the solution? We have to cut through the governmental obstacles to build the homes. I will start by eliminating the federal GST on new homes to save up to $50,000. I'll pressure the provinces to do the same to bring that savings over $100,000. And I will put in place powerful financial incentives to get the municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development taxes so that we can build 50.
All right, this is a dress rehearsal for this Friday's Canada First rally. Wait for it. The emphasis is going to be on eliminating these taxes and regulations, because he said it there. Housing is emblematic of how bad the Canadian economy is. This is going to be the new focus. Let's listen to some more.
More homes every year. The answer is in our hands. Let's build the homes that we need. In this country, we now spend more on taxes than we do on food, clothing, and shelter combined. And what are we getting for our money? Look at the state of our infrastructure, our health care, and our other programs. They've gotten no better as our taxes have gotten higher and higher. The problem is, the great Marty Morantz pointed out at the Finance Committee, where we served together, is that the spending is out of control. You know, they came to the committee once and they said, we're not going to have to worry about taxing for the money. We're just going to print it. We're going to print the cash. And this is back in 2020. And Marty put up his hand and he said, my dad taught me when I was a little boy that if governments print money to get inflation, didn't they have that in Weimar Republic? And the bureaucrats said, oh, that's old-fashioned thinking. Well, it turns out old-fashioned thinking can actually be right. The old rules repeat themselves over and over again. The problem is we're creating too much cash to fund too much government. The bureaucracy is metastasized. The bureaucracy is now 100,000 more people than it was a decade ago. To do what?
My apologies for the video there. I don't know why they didn't have it more professionally done yesterday. It's like somebody in the back of the room was taking the video. I don't know, because this was a great speech. And as I say, this is the speech that's a dress rehearsal for what's coming on Friday. I have a suggestion. Instead of just axe the tax, we're axing the taxing. That's what the Conservatives need to be the party of. We're axing the taxing. We're getting out of your lives. We're going to stop stealing money from your pockets. Trudeau government likes to say they're putting more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians with their damn carbon rebate. The truth is they're stealing more money out of your pockets than any government in the history of Canada. That's the reality of the Trudeau government. They're not putting money in your pockets. They're taking the money out of your pocket. Now, if you think I'm wrong, Poilievre has been talking about this for quite a while. I'm just going to show a bit of this because it's old. This is the great interview he did with Jordan Peterson. But this has been in Poilievre's mind for quite a while, that housing is emblematic of the economic catastrophe that Canada has become. And listen to his words. I'll play a couple of minutes here.
Housing costs are another one.
Right.
There was a study out just 10 days ago that has Toronto and Vancouver now by far the most unaffordable housing markets in North America. And so, you know, housing costs are 50% higher in Toronto than they are in Chicago, even though Chicago workers make 50% more money. The same is true between Vancouver and Seattle. Seattle workers make way more than Vancouver workers, but housing is 60 or 70% more expensive in Vancouver. So on all
so
the
we're making
measures,
less by a lot.
Yes.
By a lot.
By a lot.
Yeah.
And
like
we're paying more.
Paying more by a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And most of that's transpired in the last 10 years.
Yes. And we're paying the difference by accumulating enormous quantities of debt. Our households are by far the most indebted in the G7. When you divide total household debt by GDP, we now have a bigger stock of household debt than our entire economy. We are more indebted as households than the Americans were right before the 2008 financial crisis. And so what we have as a model in Canada is we have artificial scarcity imposed by a very heavy and restrictive state, confiscatory state. So that suppresses production.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to allow for consumption, we print money and borrow money and then flood the economy with that money.
Okay, so that's another problem. So that's the inflationary problem.
Yes.
Now, the problem with inflation.
All right. So this has been on Poilievre's mind for quite a while. And this is how he sees the election being won. Stop pretending that Canada is doing so well. Mark Carney can talk about the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax being taken away, but he's going to tax you just as badly. His tariffs will be just as horrendous. You'll be just as poor under Mark Carney as you are under Justin Trudeau. Do you feel poor today? Do you feel poorer now than you did 9 years ago? I sure as hell do. Yes, taxes are everywhere. Every 3 months, another tax. And it's driving business, corporations, people out of Canada into the U.S. and elsewhere. Largely into the U.S. I got one more theme I want to talk about today. But mark my words. We're axing the taxing. It's up for grabs. Conservative communications. You can use it if you want. But that's where I believe we're going on Friday at this Canada First rally. I am looking forward to hearing some good things. I went to the last Axe the Tax rally in Ottawa, and I was so inspired, I actually said, hey, this guy seems to be getting it. He was actually Reagan-esque in his appeal to a Canada I remember, or Canada I can believe in, where people worked for themselves and their families, and they saw progress, where they weren't afraid to walk the streets, and the government wasn't telling them how to raise their children, what to think. The government wasn't taking away their freedom of speech. I was inspired. I hope I'm inspired on Friday as well. I'm going to go there prepared to be inspired. What else is Justin Trudeau doing before he departs? And I don't mean this mortal coil. Before he departs finally as prime minister, which it appears he's going to do unless we have an earlier than expected election and you watch Justin Trudeau can hang on to power. But he's going to fill a lot of Senate seats. Now, Justin Trudeau likes to pretend that these Senate seats are all independent. They're not liberals. Of course, this is all nonsense. These are all woke politicians. And if you've sat in the Senate gallery lately, it is a dog's breakfast of little power groups. But their commonality is they're all woke progressives. And they all love Justin Trudeau's policies. And I can tell you, when Pierre Poilievre becomes prime minister, it's going to be a nightmare getting legislation through the Senate. It's going to be exactly like what happened in Great Britain in about 1901. When the House of Lords blocked significant legislation coming from the House of Commons. And they had to enact legislation to stop the House of Lords from impeding legislation passed by the House of Commons. We're not going to have a constitutional amendment to stop this. The precedent is there in the UK. But we're going to have to deal with the potential intransigence of the Senate trying to block all of the conservative legislation, because these people who are now sitting in the Senate, and Trudeau's going to send some more there, are hostile to Poilievre, to conservatives, to conservatism, to anything that's not woke policy. And it's a fight waiting to happen, and we're going to have to be prepared for that. I've written about this in my Substack. Didn't have time to bring that up today, but I will tomorrow. Closing remarks in a minute. Yeah, thank you for watching today, folks. I will be back again tomorrow at 10 o'clock with all the news you need to know. Let's continue to resolve to resist. Let's keep fighting for truth, for justice, and the Canadian way of life that we all remember and want back again. Until tomorrow, let's keep fighting.